serious question for you. What is a reasonable impetus for change? You may wonder why I'm asking this question, and I'll get into that today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Tuesday, the 27th of April of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Rumble being my preferred platform, but obviously wherever you choose to join me from, you can go ahead and do that. So we're going to talk about this idea of the impetus for change, and we're going to talk about it with regard to a particular thing, and it is policing and how that is handled in the United States. There are, I know you know, 330 basically million people in the United States. Yet we can only come up with a few incidents where problematic behavior on the part of law enforcement is concerned. If you could come up with 330,000 such incidents a year, you would still only have about a tenth of the population at large, tenth of a percent of the population at large, not a tenth of, but a tenth of a percent of, a tenth of a hundredth of the population at large that were dealing with such scenarios. The reality is you can't come up with 33,000. That's a hundredth of a percent. A hundredth of 100, right? Not 100. So let's just think about this. Or 1 in 10,000 people affected by such events. You can't come up with that. Okay? I question whether you could come up with 3,300, which is 1,000th of a percent, or 1 in every 100,000 people affected in any given year. This is nothing short of an astoundingly low number. It's amazingly low. It's awesomely low. It's nearly miraculous. The number is so small. Regardless of the culpability of the individual or the system, neither is huge. If the law enforcement officers have done wrong, then they should be dealt with. Of course, nobody's arguing that. The same applies to police departments. If they're broken, they need to be fixed. Okay? This is the story. But when it comes right down to it, we've got such a small number of people who are being affected by this sort of thing on a yearly basis that and particularly when you consider the number of law enforcement transactions with everyday people, it is nothing short of amazing that this number is so small. So here's what it comes down to for me. We have people talking about reimagining policing, and I'm going, really? Based on what? What are you reimagining policing based on? Why are you changing policing at all based on what you know? I'm not saying there should be absolutely no change, nothing should ever change with policing. It's all perfectly correct. I'm saying if you look at the overall structures of policing in the United States, the actual number of people who are involved in any kind of bad interaction with law enforcement is exceptionally small. It's very small. And again, look at how many total transactions. It's estimated that the number of transactions is probably in the hundreds of millions a year, police to other people, to non-law enforcement entities. I don't know how you can come to the conclusion that we need to change how we're doing business. Yeah, we've seen some instances. Well, okay, so let's get into that. We'll talk about that in a second. We've seen some instances where bad things happened. But the truth of the matter is, in a lot of those instances, it's really questionable whether you should be blaming law enforcement for what occurred. And it's certainly questionable whether they're totally to blame for it, right? And there was something I had, and the point about all of this, right, is look, you see an event, and then you see another event. Oh no, 2 events. You see 3 events. You see 10 events. You see 100 events. You see an event a day, okay, that makes it into the public eye. You see an event a day. So how many events is that a year? Oh, that's 365 events. 365. Even if they pump out an event a day that you should be looking at it and going, oh my gosh, my answer to you is you're still only getting 365 events. if one happens every single day of the year, people? Now, you say, well, how many don't make it on film? That's true. You're probably right. So let's say we multiply that by 10 or even 100. Like I say, 365, so 3650. So even if you say 36,500, which is almost certainly not correct, bad interactions, really bad interactions, because you'd know. You would hear about it if it happened. Even if you multiply the number, even if you had one every day and you multiply that number by 100, the number is still exceptionally small for the number of transactions that occur. And for you to try and by the way, let's not forget, spread throughout the nation, right? It's not like in one area. This is not happening in one place. Oh, Little Rock, Little Rock, Little Rock. No, that's not how that's happening, right? So this one's in Illinois, and this one's in Wisconsin, and this one's in wherever, right? It happens to be. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? So wherever it happens to be. This one's in Missouri. So based on what you're seeing, you not only can't cite one place where all of this is happening, but even if you could for that place, unless it was really small, the number is actually quite small. But the point of all of this is none of what I'm hearing is to me an impetus for overall change. You talk about a law enforcement officer needing to be relieved from duty. You talk about somebody needing to be charged for crimes who's working as a law enforcement officer because he or she mishandled a given situation. Okay, all right. I will still say that because they're under tremendous pressure to perform and to help people in need, you're actually probably asking for more than you should. Okay, for a lot of these people. This lady who pulled her sidearm instead of her taser, I've heard any number of reasons, very reasonable presentations on why such a thing might have happened. And unless she was intending to shoot the guy, which, by the way, considering he was a potentially armed individual who was wanted on something like armed robbery or something like that, okay? If she had shot him, if she had pulled her sidearm and fired on him instead of intending to pull a taser and accidentally pulling her sidearm, I hate to tell you this, but he's diving into his car and trying to get away, knowing very well that he's got warrants for his arrest. He's not unaware of the fact that he's got warrants for his arrest. The kid, the 13-year-old with a gun, same sort of thing. The cop had to make a split-second decision. He made what some would term a bad one. The young lady with the knife lunging at the other young lady. Seriously? You've got an armed police officer coming up on you, and with his weapon in hand, and you lunge at somebody with a knife? Really? What did you think was going to happen? And I'm gonna cite Larry Elder on this. Comply, don't die. When law enforcement tells you you need to do something, do it. Now, the one kid who it's believed threw away the weapon when the law enforcement officer told him to get rid of it and to put it down or whatever, and it looked like was trying to put his hands up. That one is a little bit tougher of a situation, but remember again that it's split seconds that this officer has to respond, people. How would you respond? Put yourself in a situation. There was this little thing in the local Museum of Discovery, right, which is a little science museum here in this local area. And it was a thing where you were testing how quickly you could grab something as it fell. And I was pretty fast, and let me just tell you that I was quite slow. But by comparison to other people, I was quite fast at that thing. Quite fast. You have a split-second response. So I'm going to say this again. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, I get the emotion, but if you look at the data, you will see that the number of people who are actually dealing with malfeasance on the part of law enforcement cannot be a big one. It just can't. All right. I need to go ahead and wrap this up now. I could talk on this, obviously, for quite a while longer. It's a subject that's very important to me because I really see that we're overreacting to a lot of stuff. As I say this, though, this has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Tuesday, April 27th of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Wednesday, what a lot of people call Hump Day, April 28th of 2021. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, YouTube, or wherever. Today's subject has been the impetus of change. Tomorrow we're going to talk about being principled. Very important thing, and I think you'll enjoy my little presentation. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope you're, marching ever closer to that weekend, and that things are going well for you. We're getting a little bit of what is going to look like rainy weather here, maybe sometime in the very near future. Hope that things are going well for you, and that you're having, generally good time. And hopefully we'll see you on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Tuesday, April 27th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.